Good morning or good afternoon. I think it changed from the time I stepped up here. How is everybody? Welcome to Cincinnati. Yay. So first of all, I want to say welcome to everyone that's in the room and also to those who are joining us virtually. Greetings from everyone in Cincinnati. My name is Christy Coombs, and I have the pleasure of being the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio, the longest title probably of any organization. On behalf of our incredible team and our board of directors, we want to welcome you to the Holloman Center for Social Justice. We opened this center earlier this year after a $1 million gift from our CEO, Philip Holloman, and his wife, Gail, a black couple here in Cincinnati, and we are so proud that this was established from a gift from our own folks. So you are here today for the Building Parent and Policy Power Conference, correct? Yes. Are you excited? Yes. Are you going to build power for parents? Yes. And we're going to change policy. Change it. Change it. That's right. So we are incredibly proud to host all of you over the next couple of days as we connect, learn, and share best practices, strategies to empower parents to advocate for policies to improve the educational experience for all kids. And why do we say all kids? Because even when you're in there advocating for your child, it's going to impact other kids whose parents may not have the opportunity to be in that space. The National Urban League has a 2025 empowerment goal of every American child is ready for college, work, and life. Here in Cincinnati, we share National's commitment to ensuring that all children receive equitable educational opportunities because we believe that education is one of the most impactful ways to create long-term financial stability and workforce success. Now, if you give them financial stability, they get out of your pockets, right? Okay, so let's not forget that. I want to personally thank Hal Smith, where's Hal? Okay, the Senior Vice President for Education, Youth Development, and Health of the National Urban League for selecting Cincinnati as the host for this year's conference. Thank you, Hal. I also want to recognize and thank our head of policy and advocacy, Jazz Coaston. Where's Jazz? Jazz, come up here. She has such a passion for this work. It is not just a job, it is in her heart, and she brings that to this work every single day, not only for the kids in our community, but her own kids. And she makes sure that they're part of the process as well. So I want to make sure that she is recognized. And you can stand on up here because I might pick on you some more, so don't try to run away. We have a lot of other folks who have been involved in this, and so I want to make sure that anyone here at the Urban League that has helped, some of you are already standing, making sure I don't mess it up, but the rest of you, if you could stand and be recognized, the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio team, thank you. This year, we are celebrating our 75th anniversary at this league. We have 80 employees who you've just recognized and seen, and we are the largest and oldest black organization in Southwestern Ohio, servicing Cincinnati and Dayton, a 12-county region. Like urban leagues across the country, we are committed to empowering communities and changing lives through our many workforce, financial empowerment, entrepreneurship, leadership, and youth programs. In August, we celebrated the official opening of this beautiful space, which we just talked about, and it was established, as I said, in 2020 by Philip and Gail Holloman after the uprisings across the country, where Philip and Gail said, our people should invest in our people. And if we want to see sustainable solutions, they put their money forward, and so we're excited. The center engages in policy advocacy, data collection and reporting, Kendra Reeves, community education and organizing to advance racial equity in our region. Is our managing director here? Where's Gabriel? Oh, he's sick? Oh, goodness, well, he missed it. Tell him I mentioned it. Over the next 2 days, you will learn a lot, make valuable new connections, and we hope will enjoy your stay in our beautiful city. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining us. Oh, I was going to take her. I was going to take them on purpose. Do you? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our awesome CEO, and thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Jasmine Costin. People call me Jazz. And I am head of policy and advocacy here at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio. It's my pleasure. I want to give just a brief overview of our Black Caregiver Network and the work that we do here that we are all coming here to celebrate, so that for folks who are not with us in New York, have an understanding of kind of why we are here and the types of things that we're doing to build that parent and policy power. Okay. Awesome, thank you. So when we started this education equity work, we wanted to be very clear about our goals. Everything that we do when it comes to policy is rooted in a deep love for Black folks and Black liberation. And so we wanted to create a system of accountability within our school systems that amplified Black caregivers' voices. And let me be clear, we use the term caregiver, and that encompasses anyone that supports a student in the Cincinnati Public School District. Why? Because as Black folks, we know that we are not traditional, nuclear family, A plus B equals C. Everyone, the village raises our students. And that isn't because of a deficit, that's because of actually the assets in our community. More than just a parent cares for a child. So we wanted that terminology to be nimble enough to encompass the beauty of our culture. So the accountability that amplifies Black caregivers' voices and measures what matters to them, giving them the tools and the power to hold the system accountable and elect candidates aligned with their values. So that was our goal. So we had some lofty goals, but it made it very clear that we wanted to amplify, we wanted to equip, and then we wanted to elect folks that cared about the things we cared about. We have a lot of building blocks when it comes to the way that we do things. Advocacy, so creating public awareness campaigns, making sure that we're building relationships, having accountability where we had discussion groups, we were recruiting influencers from the community, and then activation. How do we activate the caregivers in this network to make sure that they can do the things that they actually want to and see the need for being done? We based this on a foundation of organizing, community organizing. So we had an organizer that did one-on-ones. They assembled the Black Caregiver Network. They worked to build community partnerships, and they provided in-school support. So our in-school support kind of was something that we didn't even realize was needed, but our organizer would accompany caregivers in their conversations with school administration and say, hey, let's not test him out today, because that might not be the best way to get this policy changed. And so you can cuss at me and tell me the things you want to say, but when we go into this meeting, we're not going to do that. And our parents were like, you're right, let's do that. And so that was actually very helpful, because we know that systems sometimes look at our caregivers, and because of maybe their level of education or the things that they do or the way that they engage with their student, they write them off immediately. But we wanted to be that liaison to say, no, we're here. We know exactly what you're saying, and it's not right, and we're going to make sure that our caregivers understand that and give them the tools to be able to say the things they need to say. So from that came the Black Caregivers Network. That's how we named it, and it flourished. It really did. We realized when we kept coming to them. We would hold 2 meetings a month. The first meeting was anybody who wanted to show up. It wasn't like you have to be a part of this, that, and the other. It was like, we having this, come and join us. The second meeting was our parent leadership team, and they were the ones who were kind of like taking what was happening at the first community building meeting and then bringing it back and saying, this is what we're hearing, so these are the ways that we want to activate. So in that, we kept hearing, we don't like the way that we're being engaged. I don't like that I can't be the room parent, so that means I don't have a say. I don't like that I hear that we're having a principal search and I don't know any of the people who are there. And so we decided, let's talk about this engagement issue, because whether it's how they're being engaged in the student or the principal finding process, or how they're being engaged because they're not the room parent, it was all about the ways that our district, our schools, our administrators, our teachers were engaging our caregivers. So we wanted to facilitate a process of co-creation that was built on the relationships that we were building. How could we get the fruit of that and create policy change? So we did a survey, and when we talked about Kendra Reeves, she will talk to you about that a little bit more tomorrow, but she is the best data mine in the United States. And so she helped us create a survey, because we knew we're not gonna send this and it be 10,000 questions. It's not gonna be write out everything. We had 4 questions, and we went to all of the events in the summer and we're like, come take this, scan this QR code, and do this. And parents were like, okay, I can do that. How long is it? 4 questions. Got it. We'll do it. We also had our organizer do over 200 one-on-one conversations. She was meeting with anyone who was a part of the educational bubble, because we realized that it's not just what happens in school that affects education. That's one of the things that I say all the time. We'll have question and answers. That was one of the things that I said all the time. It's not just the things that happen in school. Everything else decides if the child is ready to learn. So we did that, and then, again, the caregiver meetings helped us to also know, man, my child XYZ this week and I didn't like it. Okay, how can we help you? It wasn't, oh, well, because that happened, this is what we're gonna do. It was, how can we support you? So it was co-creation. We were doing this in a time of COVID, and so everything was online. So these are some of the conversations we had. We had Zoom. When I tell you we had funding to send people pizza so that they would come to the meetings, it was like whatever we can do to engage folks, because we knew that the policies that were coming out because of COVID were going to be important, and we couldn't live with ourselves with Black caregivers not being a part of that conversation. So it was like, hey, if that means we send a pizza to your house and you show up and you tell us what you need, that's what we'll do. And I love that, because I feel like it's like guerrilla liberation, right? Like just whatever we can do to get to the people. We had a lot of things, like I said, that summer. We did a lot of everything that we do in Cincinnati in the summertime it's a festival, it's a food truck, it's a whatever, and we were there. Our organizer, Kelly Dukes, she's no longer with us at the Urban League, but she is still doing amazing community work, and she'll talk to you about her strategy when it came to organizing, because she was like, whatever I need to do, I will do it, and we worked so well. It was like, I have a vision, girl. She's like, I got it. So when we came out of it, like I said, parental engagement rose to the top, school culture rose to the top as well, and then understanding school politics. One of the things that we talked about in one of our meetings was that people would say, oh, I hate the politics of things. And I would always say, politics is power. We're not, as Black folks, going to keep saying we hate politics, because it is power, and we are going to learn to navigate them, because wielding that power is not negative. And so even understanding how to de-escalate systems and de-escalate issues inside of the system was a whole conversation we had. You upset about it? Write an op-ed. Write an op-ed and tell the world what's happening with your baby, because that matters, and that's a way to navigate. And we had a whole class about what is an op-ed, what does it mean to write one, where should you put one, what does it mean? And it wasn't this, I want to condescend and talk to you about something you didn't know. It was, let me show you a tool in the toolbox. And we had 5 different parents write one. It was tough. It was like, I would get emails late at night, like, can you look over my op-ed in the morning? But it was really a beautiful thing. Like I said, we came down to parental engagement and coalition building. So one of the things that I'm most proud of that we did with the Parent Caregiver Network was a letter opposing an Ohio bill in 616. It was a repeat of the Don't Say Gay bill that you see. And as the Urban League, we had never marched in a pride parade before, and so Glisten invited us after doing that with them to march in the pride parade with them, and it was just really beautiful because for the first time, we, me, Christy, our kids, other people from Urban League were out there, and we were holding our Urban League banner, and there were Black folks who were looking like, Urban League? Yes, Urban League, because we celebrate every way there is to be Black. Right? We celebrate that. We know that we have caregivers that might belong to the LGBT community, and we celebrate that. And we want to know, how can we equip you to be your best advocate? And so maybe we've always been that way, but if we don't say it, if we're not loud and proud about it, what does it matter? And so now it's something we do every year, and we get excited about it, and we're down there at Pride, and we also are like, what are the ways that we can do better about this? We have many partners that we work with. I mean, everyone from CPS, of course, to NAACP. School Board School is one of the professional development programs that we send our caregivers to, because it tells you everything that you want to know if you want to run for school board. Now, are we telling them they have to run for school board? No, but it breaks down school budget. How do they do the school budget? It breaks down, what does it mean to govern? What does a board member do? And so all of those things are the pieces that allow us to step into those spaces feeling fully confident in who we are. So I'm going to kind of wrap up that portion of it. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of the things that we've done, where we started, where we're going. We're continuing to build that type of power, continuing to build those relationships. Do we have time for Q&A? No? Okay. I will come and answer your question. But right now, I want to, I talked about School Board School. I met Dr. Kareem in School Board School. We were in the first class of it, and Dr. Kareem actually did run for school board and won. And so I am so excited to bring Dr. Kareem up to talk about her journey from being a parent advocate to now being on the policy side, because I think that that story embodies really what we are here to talk about today. So thank you so much for coming up here.
I'm gonna read a little bit of notes. As a new politician, we can get a little long-winded, so I want to try to stay a little on focus, but I don't have a lot of time. And I want to tell you a little bit about my journey and give you some tools on how you can ignite and engage parents, helicopter parents like me. There's nothing wrong being a helicopter parent. I'm going to tell you right now, I was one, and it has a bad connotation, but we rock. So I am, I have a PhD from UC. I'm a scientist by trade. I'm actually a divorced mom, to the scientist. I'm a divorced mom of 3. I live in the community. 2 of my most important things that I've done, those are the things that I've achieved. But 2 of my most important things, I don't know if I'm getting this right, that I've done is that I'm a mom of 3 boys. Excuse me, 3 adult men. They told me I had to switch that. And mom, we're not boys. And then I'm also a fierce advocate for young people. Fierce. Do I need to come back? Come back. Is it better? Come back again? Okay, is that better? I can take it off. Okay, so. somebody said, you are a fierce advocate for youth. And I was like, oh, I like that, I like it. So one thing I want to really share with you is that parents, caregivers are the experts. They are the experts. How did I come to that conclusion? Because I have a son, I have three. My middle son had epilepsy. And we couldn't figure out why he had epilepsy. There's no family history, what's going on. And the doctor told me, he was like, well, Mom, you're the expert. You're with them all the time. I was like, yeah, you're right. I am. Parents, caregivers are the experts for their kids. They are the history books. They're the ones that can tell you, well, you know what, we had a bad night last night. Or they can tell you, you know what, he's gonna need some medicine because X, Y, Z is going on. I'm gonna come up later. When we engage parents, we need to engage them as the experts. When you call an expert to court, you don't be questioning the expert. I don't like how you said what you said. I ain't like your data. They're the experts. So what you need to do is figure out how to get their information so that you can advocate for them. So I did that very successfully. Let me tell y'all, I rocked it. This is all pre-office. Yeah. So I am a helicopter parent. I've been an academic advisor at the University of Cincinnati, helicopter parent. I saw exactly what our district was producing at the collegiate level, trying to get into college, and it was a deficit. It hurt my heart, but I'm teaching remedial education, remedial math at the high school level. Yeah. The college level. Something's wrong. That was my first light bulb, because I had a couple. That was my first light bulb. And I was like, well, what's really going on? Then I had an opportunity to work with a federal grant, and they had me in the schools teaching science and math. So I'm seeing it, 5th, 6th, 7th graders. But I'm also seeing just diminished self-esteem. They don't think they can because they have not heard that they could. Parents don't think they have a voice because I haven't shown you how to ignite your voice. I haven't shown you about your power. So I'm that parent. I'm gonna tell you, well, did you know there's a meeting coming up? Did you know this? Parents will engage, but you have to be in the way. I didn't say meet them where they are. I said you gotta be in the way. So if you're going down this road, I need to step in the road so that I meet you. I don't tell you to come to me. That's not engagement. Engagement when I tell you to come to me. Go to the website and fill it out. Really? How about I be at your community center? How about I be in your neighborhood event? How about I knock on your door? How about when you pick up your baby, I'm at the car? That's engagement. So that's the mindset that I had when I ran for office. Quick little story. I was the PTO co-president. Are you shocked? And we wanted to get parents to come to the meetings. We have this system in Cincinnati Public where we do these robocalls. And there are these machines, and there's our meeting, on such and such. We were getting nobody to come. Now, we set the scene for you. Withrow is a population of 1,300 students. They look just like me, just like you, the majority of you. And my kids are there. And I'm trying to tell these parents, like, look, y'all ain't got this coming up, we got this, we got that. They weren't coming to the meeting. So what we did was we got on the robocalls, and we made the invitations. Parents, we invited you. So much so, let me tell you how we bugged the man. The meeting was on like a Thursday. We called them on Monday. First of all, we called them on weekends one time. Then we called them on Monday, then we called them on Tuesday, then we called them on Wednesday. This man came, he said, who is this Kareem? She getting on my nerves. I had to meet you. You actually kind of little. I wanted to fight because you was bugging me, but you kind of little. I said, well, good, you here, sit down. And he was there. He was there. He's like, I'm glad I came. Why didn't you come before? Because they was calling too much. And I don't think it pertains to me. Really? So, please, it does. So we would go to football games and pass out little business cards with the meetings on it. Only cost us, what, $20 for $500? They had a game. They're at the events for their kids. So, engagement means that I'm where you are. I don't just invite you to the table. I let you help me. Maybe at a table. Maybe we sitting around somewhere. We always talk about pulling up a chair to a table. Maybe you don't need a chair because we're not at a table. It has to look like it needs to look for you. So, having said all that, let me go back to my notes because I told you I'd get a little long-winded. So, I'm teaching math at our local college. I'm noticing that there's some problems. I'm teaching quantitative analysis. some of my adult students. And immediately, they gotta get through this class and they're like, I can't do math. Dr. Mom, I was like, well, first of all, stop talking to me about what you can't do. Because if you tell a person, I don't like you, do they want to engage with you? No. If I tell you I can't do something, I'm immediately met with a barrier. So we're gonna talk about how you gotta struggle with math, and maybe you gotta work a little harder. We're gonna change our word speak. I don't give grades. I report what you earn. There's a difference. Very different. And you can earn an A. Very different. I had some students tell me that, look, just like me say, I've never in my life at all ever earned an A in math. I think that has to do with the teacher too. What I also saw, this is all pre-election, y'all, I was gonna teach my favorite. What I also saw is that every student's not wrong. That was a hard one. I'll give you a very quick story about a little boy named Eli. I was teaching geophysics at the high school, and we talked about response versus reaction. I said, you know, I got this Dr. K's 7-second rule. And in my 7-second rule, I said, if you're in a conflict, count to 7, but you gotta get to 5. Let your fingers go. That releases some tension. So we talked about all this stuff. He was in my class because the little Japanese teacher who was 4'10", she felt intimidated by him. He's 6'2". I got boys, I understand. So he was in my class, he was in my class. He went down to get his to turn his work into her, and they ended up having a verbal confrontation, and he cussed at her. She was wrong. She said, that's why you're not going to be anything. She told us what I did that. She said, that's why you're not going to be anything. That's why you're not in my class. He said, did you hear that? I said, I heard it. Hold up, I heard it. She was going to kick him out of school. Ended up being, he ended up saying, but I saw every kid was wrong. They just, it's about your words. It's about the things that you said to them. So I ran for office. I ran for office in 2021 under increased engagement with the district, because I had seen all of that. Transparency and advocacy for parents. I wanted to have a board member that was like what I needed, that I didn't see that I had. Now, parents have so much power. You really do. When I ran, there were 4 seats, 1 incumbent, 3 new people were elected. What does that tell me? It tells me that people want something different. They want to be engaged differently, and it is possible. You elect people, that's your voice. You elect people that represent you. I said I was going to try to be a little bit, okay, I think I've covered everything that I really, really want to say in a brief minute. But I also want to tell you this. There is a war in education for our students. Flat out. I am sitting at a table with a budget of $612 million. I've never seen that much money before in my life. Every one of our babies has dollars attached to them. And there's people pulling at the state and federal level for that dollar sign. I also believe wholeheartedly, if you teach parents that their children are commodities, I'm gonna say it again, commodities, you hold over that. Would you just let, if you had a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, would you just let anybody touch your Lamborghini? Would you just let anybody in the car? No. Don't let anybody just talk to you crazy. Don't let anybody just think that your voice doesn't matter. Because if it didn't matter, they would not be trying to make your voice matter. It matters. But we have to, at these tables, we have to ignite parents. We have to remind them that their voices matter and that they have power. And I promise you, every time I've done that, it has worked. It's something that everybody can do. If you can't write an op-ed, you can't come to a meeting, you can share with 10 friends at the local bar what's going on. You can actually come and write or talk to your politician. Because I'm going to be in your way, so you're going to see me. That's what I ran on. That's what I wanted to share with you all on a very simple level, obviously, I'm not going to say. But make sure that you all work really, really hard to ignite those parents, guide them in what they need to know, and help them advocate for their commodities, which are our babies. That's it.
Dr. Kareem, you are amazing, and I'm just so grateful to have you here and for you to share a part of your story. Now we want to have our parents talk to you, because that's what we're here for. So like the celebrities are here. I'm going to talk a little bit about their journey, what's going on, how they started, what they're doing now, all of those things, and we're going to talk about parent power. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Sarah Womack, Junior Smith, and Jamon Corey. So I just want to get us started. Black Caregiver Network was founded on the belief that caregivers are the most powerful advocate for their students. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your journey as an advocate for your child or children? And I'm going to start with you, our OG.
So first off, I am the mother of 3 young kids, ages 9, 7, and 5.
Make sure your
Mic is on?
yeah. Okay.
Is it on?
Yeah.
And when I moved to Cincinnati from the East Coast, I didn't think about being a parent at the time. So when I chose my house, it wasn't in the best school district. But when the kids became school age, I knew I had to do something, and that is the beginning of the journey for me. How I connected with Urban League is somehow on the distribution list, and I got an email, and it was there were many things being discussed in the email, and at the very bottom was, if you want to support education improvement, reach out to Kelly Dukes. And so I did that, because that was right about the time I'm thinking about, okay, how can we do better with the school system? So that's my background.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey y'all, I am Jamon Corey, and I am, it's been a long journey for me. I tell folks that when I was in high school, my sister had her first kid, and I raised it. So I started off as an uncle. Then I started working in education when I was 19 years old. So then there were all of these young folks who were following me around, and some of them still are. And then I was a step-parent, and my son is 18 years old and is a senior in Cincinnati Public Schools. I am a product of Cincinnati Public Schools. I worked in Cincinnati Public Schools, and now I got a little 8-year-old, started from scratch. And I've got a 3rd grader in Cincinnati Public Schools, and I've worked in education. I've been an uncle, parent, a step-parent, a community parent, and an educator. So I've always been kind of plugged in and connected to young people, and young people have needs. Young people have experiences, and young people need somebody to speak up and communicate on behind them, to stand in front of them, behind them, and beside them at different points of their lives. And I have had the pleasure and the honor of doing that in a bunch of different ways. So I'm glad to be here.
Virginia.
Hi, my name is Julian Smith. I actually grew up here in Cincinnati. I landed here because of misconception of growing up. I grew up, both my parents were involved in the school system, and I saw always men around, and it was amazing when I finally became a parent. I noticed a lack of male involvement or acceptance of an education. So I'm still on my journey of making sure that the school system sits there and make sure that they're engaging with definitely being more fathers and male involvement in the education system. Like I said, I'm very fortunate I met Jasmine through School Board Schools, as well as Kareem. Kareem is actually part of my journey. Short little story, when she ran for office, I actually was a parent who came in with a hoodie on, was pretty ticked off, and it was really funny watching someone speaking up on the stage, on the platform, having everyone in my thoughts as a parent going, you guys aren't telling us enough, you're not letting me know you're meeting me where I'm at. So it's an honor to be here, especially with these folks right here.
Thank you.
Can I say real quick, Dr. Kareem is like all roads lead to her. She was one of my helicopter parents. I had those adult men were boys in a school that I worked at, the first school that I ever worked at. So we go way back too.
Awesome. Yes, things that we found in our engagement with caregivers was that Black caregivers viewed engagement less as volunteerism and more as holistic support of their students and the school community at large. Can you talk about the ways you found to be most impactful and fulfilling in your engagement with schools?
Yes, I'll start. And so, let's talk about the neighborhood school. So the neighborhood school where my residence is was considered a failing school by the state standard. And when I became I would prefer to walk the kids to school, but that wasn't an option at the time. And so what I did decide to do, even though I didn't send my kiddos there, was to try to advocate for the school. So I met with the principal and told her what my vision was. So just a tiny bit of background. So I have a research degree in engineering. So I figured, well, let me apply some of the scientific kind of method sort of way to school improvement. So I approached the principal with that kind of mind frame paradigm, and she was on board. And she said, do you want to be a part of the LSDMC, the Local Decision Making Committee, which is a group of parents plus community advocates plus others, and they come together in a similar way as a PTA might come together and try to influence decisions in schools and outcomes. And so that's kind of the starting point of it. When I got, there was no PTA at the school, so the first step was, well, can we form a PTA? And so that was some of the kind of activism work that I started with on the journey. And then, of course, it reached out to the Black Caregiver Network as well to see if we could synergize our efforts and do more faster. So that was the beginning of it.
Thank you.
The beginning for me, I would say when I was working in Cincinnati Public Schools back in the days of Cincy After School, where we had a network of out-of-school time programs that were community-led and organized. And one of the major components of that program offering was parent engagement. But the only way that we measured engagement during that time was how many parents came to the event and signed in on the paper. Y'all know how that goes. I talked to parents all day long, and when it came time to report on parent engagement, my parent engagement numbers were low. And I'm like, I know you love me. I know every one of my parents. Let me tell you how they show up. Let me tell you who I talked to and the information that they gave me. Let me tell you which parents you can talk to if you can't reach another parent. Let me tell you how these parents are coming in and bringing snacks when the snacks don't get delivered. Let me tell you all the ways that parent engagement is happening in our schools that y'all aren't counting. So then when we started to do program evaluation for our programs, I'm like, we've got administrators weighing in and telling us what we should do. We've got the teachers telling us when homework's not getting turned in. We've got the district telling us whether or not our schools are making improvement or not, but we haven't heard from the parents around what their actual experience is. So we started pushing, we had a requirement to do a parent survey, but it was one of those things that got kind of stuffed in the back of the folder at the end of the year to say you did it. But we started planning with the data that we were getting from our parents. So every quarter, asking questions around their experience. Not just their experience, but also their needs and their desired outcomes. Not what we're gonna do and how you feel about it, but what is it that you need for us to do as we're showing up for your young people, and how can we do that together? So we kind of revolutionized the way that we track and measure involvement of our parents in our schools by just taking a look at what was already happening. The wild card.
So my reasoning for really getting engaged actually started with the Cincinnati Public Schools lottery. We watched the automatic division where my son, when he went to a magnet school, one of the top schools, was being questioned because of ethnicity and economics. You watched several schools be divided. We had a local school here that people came out for 3 weeks just to go in. I'll be the first one to tell you, I made arrangements because this is one of the top schools in TPS. And that started the whole thing. And to walk into a school and to automatically have the vision as a parent, we weren't getting information. The best example is, I know a gentleman who is currently a doctor over at Trial. He was going to night school, he'd come in, brings 4 girls to school every day. Not one parent, not one administrator ever said a word to them. For 4 years, never said a word to them. Me, because my personality is a little wacky and peculiar, I noticed there was dads dropping their kids off. I would just run down the street and high five people and high five dads. That was just me. That was my way of engaging. So I decided to go join the PTO at our school. What I found at the time, I was the first male to be on that board in 8 years. And I was kicked off in 60 days. And I was kicked off because, quote unquote, the letter I got is, you don't sound like us, it's not how we think. And to me, that was the most motivation I ever had. And this is going to bring me back to Kareem, ironically. We had a mutual friend, I sat on the porch with them, and we were playing. And part of the reason why my journey started is because I wanted to talk to every politician, every school board member, and ask them, excuse my French, why the hell are you not thinking about my child? Why are you not thinking about my child's friend? So I personally engage and advocate from the point of not the 10% of the PTO who show up for the meetings. My thing is about those parents who work 2 jobs who can't make it, or the parent who sits there who picks up 4 kids from 4 different schools every day, and they're not getting information, or they're getting an overload because the district's giving so many robocalls that you just don't pick up the phone at all because you realize you're gonna have 5 people telling you 6 different things every single day. That it's like having a telemarketer. So I come from that standpoint where even now, my son's over at Walnut Hills, which if anybody knows me, I'm not a big pro. Watching the same thing happen again, where I am watching parents who feel that, as you use for our term, leaving their kids alone and not realize they're a commodity because they don't want to sit there and see their child get damaged by their involvement, or if they don't take it off somebody who is with the PTO or LCMC. Fortunately for me, and my child, and I'll say this, to wrap it up, is that my son understands my passion and understands that the mindset is if you don't speak up, then you're part of the problem or so the solution.
Okay. Building community has also been the foundation of the Black Caregiver Network, getting caregivers together so that they can build. We've seen the beauty of what happens when parents build power together, and we want to know what has been your most fulfilling experience building community with other parents, and how does that enhance your experience on this journey to advocacy? Whoever.
All right, well, I like to move it inside out. Do everything that's negative, you can find something positive. Through that adversity, I actually have a dance group that meets every month. And these are parents and caregivers. We started the dance group, but we open it up, obviously, because there's different style of parenting. And it's just a platform for our kids to see what true engagement is. To sit there and see people from different economic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, just having a good time enjoying themselves. The reason why I started, to be frankly honest, was my son would go to school and he would see the parents the kids who had parents involved were treated differently. And he didn't get to see that diversity of the dad who didn't work, who wasn't mad, who didn't come home tired, and he saw moms who, let me just say this, I have 100% respect for, who worked and came and was involved in school, and they didn't see the same thing. And I thought we needed a platform for us, for our kids just to see that, hey, we can have fun just like mom too, we can invest just like mom too, and it just developed over time. So anybody, if you're locally, Sunday, or level 1 arcade, if you want to come with your kids, feel free. But it's just things like that. It's also led to other opportunities like junior achievement. Myself and a person, we were very fortunate that they started an innovation program where we'll be in local high schools. I'll be at Asian High School where you get to go in the classrooms and work with those kids and let them be creative, those who are trying to become entrepreneurs. It's those many blessings that are going on and encouraging with our youth that move forward to opportunities.
So throughout my oldest child's education journey, I feel like we started off when he was very young, being in a situation that was not such a great one, where he was not seen in school, he wasn't fully understood by his educators, did not feel like he can be his best, brightest self at school. He he would be at home reading books well above his grade level, but the teacher, you know, once brought me in and told me he couldn't read. And we had to have a hard conversation that day. So as a result of that, we changed schools. He went to a different school. It was a long journey. I could tell that story another day, but we went to a different school. And when we got to the different school, there was a teacher who brought us in because it was during conferences. It was like, he's doing so great, but you know, he talked a lot. And we're like, well, he didn't used to talk. And she said, say less. He can talk as much as he wants. So through that process, he started making friends, and she gave him space to do that. And those friends became our friends. And those parents of those young folks became our friends. And we ended up creating kind of a community where at least once a month, we were going out and seeing a movie. We were going skating. We were doing things. And we were like, not making a lot of money at the time, but whatever we had, we were spending on those kids so that they can be together. And by coming together, we got to meet each other's parents, and they got to be, can you pick up from school? Sure, I got you. Can you help with homework? Yeah, I got you. And we had this informal network that existed outside of the school, but I can guarantee you we weren't on any roster for parent involvement.
Yes, so it was about building community. Do you mind if we switch over to Q&A? Okay, we're gonna switch to Q&A. If you have questions online on the live stream, if you don't mind putting those into the chat, and we will do our best to get those answered. Are there questions here in the room? Come to the microphone here, do you mind? We can. So everyone can hear your question. And if you other folks have questions, if you don't mind just creating a line, just coming up so that we can. Thank you so much.
All right, hey y'all, thanks y'all. I'm Tina, so I have a question for you. So what is your advice for starting a group of dads, or just in general, getting dads more engaged in like the education work and just overall?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I think it just starts with wanting to be part of your kid's life. Mine started with coaching, and I'll be frankly honest, like, it's just walking around saying, taking a normal night that you would hang out with your buddies at the bar or bowling, and just including kids in there. That's really how ours started. I literally just went around to dads and invited them out to bowl. And I said, bring your kids. And the dads that I couldn't get hold of, I went to their wives and said, hey, do you want a night free of kids? Tell your husband to bring the kids. And that's realistically how it started. I would be remiss. I have 6 gentlemen. They're all at different schools. Their kids are all older at different schools. And we get together, and I'm very happy that one started a dad's program out there in Sycamore. So we all get together. It just starts about just us committing our friendships to our kids' level. And you know, it's a slow build. It took 7 years. Trust me, it took 7 years. And a lot of sorrow nights, but it's like, where do you want to invest at? And investing in my kid and his friends is definitely worth investment.
Morning, great conversation. Michael McCoy, National Urban Young Professionals. Questions in regards to the dad, but I know you specifically said you should have at least had a high school before. I have a younger brother who lives in Tennessee, I live in Richmond, Virginia, and who is a high school junior. Like, what are some recommendations for helping him prepare for like life after high school, even from like a long distance standpoint, because it still needs preparation, not necessarily getting it at this moment in time. That make sense?
Absolutely. I think that is the question of the ages. I think that at that age, one of the things that I used to run a mock legislature program, and I used to take young folks from all over to come and go. And I would always go to the school like, don't send me your best and brightest, send me the young one that just got suspended. I want to take them. And I never had any problems. But what I always say with young folks is take them places, show them things. And when a young person sees something that they want, the first question they're going to ask you is how to get it. And we start to engineer backwards. We talk about using the engineering and scientific method, like going backwards, like starting with presenting something and asking them, what do you think about it? And those small conversations lead to bigger conversations, lead to action steps. So like that is the simplest way that I would say it is through conversation and introduction of new things. Ask them, have you heard this record of something that they've never heard before? Have you seen this film? Have you been to this place? And try to create those experiences, because the first question they'll ask you, and you might have to try a few things, because they know everything and don't like anything. So you got exposure is everything, but starting by like putting those things out there, and when they see something they like, the first question they're going to ask you is how to get it.
This is Sam Rath from Youth Parents of Western New York. My question is, have y'all done anything to connect with y'all do as parent organizations to historically values that came before y'all? And are y'all intentional about thinking about making sure all this institutional knowledge y'all gaining, y'all pass to the next generation so they don't gotta come and start all over?
Okay, can I tap that one?
Yes.
I think that is such a profound question. Because when you think about education as it stands now, we have inherited basically dilapidated houses that people are like, why are the houses so dilapidated? Well, they were inherited as dilapidated, and now it's kind of incumbent upon us to figure out how to fix them. Maybe the education system itself for certain socioeconomic classes. So, in terms of going back, I don't think we can. Simply because it was so bad in the past, you would argue where we are is much more advanced or better, more opportunities, more better facilities. Cincinnati has beautiful physical buildings now. So dilapidated in terms of the physical structure is not as much a problem. I think going forward, that is one of the million-dollar questions that needs to be answered. But there are others as well. So the work I did, and I couldn't even move that school needle in my neighborhood school. I had to go to another school where I knew there was high parental engagement to figure out how to improve the achievement gap. But if I went back to that school that's doing terrible, could not get the principals and the teacher leads, I just couldn't get everybody on the same page to move the needle forward. So I think it is going to be a multifaceted approach. I do think your question is important, but we have to also think about how do we build what we want now, and then how do we keep it going? Because I'm a parent for what in the school year, for maybe 15 years, and then I exit out, and that's just the way the cycle goes. We need systems in place really to make it sustainable, and so anyway, I'll cut it there. Just say it's a question that needs to be answered.
That just as a parent that's been doing this for 30 years, it's some parents that fit back there who then fought, who you don't know about,
Right.
a little bit of research or find they just got worn down and nobody told their story.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to look up that history.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we base what we do in the Black Caregiver Network on community building. So we have those meetings where whomever wants to come can come, and we have those meetings with the people who want to execute, so that we are always having parents around parents. And then it might be something as simple as now we're going out bowling, but it could be, hey, now I'm about to run for school board and I need some folks to help. And so then as people cycle out, more people are cycling in. So we're never kind of at that loss. Are there questions from,
So Jazz, it sounds like Urban League is going to be one of the organizations by which we keep moving this thing forward.
yeah, from your lips to God's ears.
National Parents Union.
Hi everyone, so thank you so much for being here. So shout out to the homeschool parents here. We came in strong.
Yes.
But truly, as a homeschool parent, and so I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I've opted out. So just be honest. I have a daughter, she's 7, she's never been in the public school system. And that's a reason, right? The things that we're talking about today is heavy. And so my question though for you all is, where do homeschool families fit in? And not just where is the system making space for us, because we've already opted out, so we'll make our own spaces. But how do we collaborate?
Yeah.
So how could we help this effort?
Yeah, so I will tell you, when Kelly and I first sat down and talked about what our vision was for this policy initiative, we wanted to do homeschool parents, we wanted to do private school, we wanted to do all of these different counties. I mean, we were like, we can do, and then we were like, wait a minute, it's us too. What is that gonna look like? That's why we focused in on CPS, which is the largest kind of district here in this area. But I appreciate you bringing up that point, because we want to support homeschool parents. We just didn't have an entryway, right? And so I think that is incumbent on us to find those parents, to build that community, because even though it's not the same district or the same like way that students are engaging, parents would want to possibly engage in that way. So I'm gonna put that on my list of things to like prioritize as we continue in this movement, is to seek out those parents and see how they can connect. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, I appreciate that, yeah, please.
So I was just going to say thank you so much for speaking up. The work that I do now in supporting students is, I always say that we're doing work to shift systems, but I'm always grateful for people like you who share their stories, because while we're doing the work to shape our system, you and your 7-year-old baby don't have the luxury of time to wait. So I'm grateful for you sharing your story and where you are and what you're doing, and what I think is collectively, even the work Dr. Kareem is doing on the school board, looking at the entire ecosystem that our young people are in, and thinking about the resources that are there, the educational assets that show up, and how we're buttressing and supporting those things, because you should and could have access to those things as well. Like thinking about the community centers, the library. We're all in this work together, because these are the things that contribute and support the educational journey of our young people. And if we could build those up, identify them, amplify them, then whoever's here, whether they're in the system or outside of it, a young person, we have the responsibility of making sure that that whole ecosystem is whole and well.
My team member has a question for her. Feed her that she needs cookies, so I'm back again. I'm back again. Not taking that space from that. So question is what does it look like for special ed students or like students with IEPs, and like what is advocacy for you all?
Yes, so that is our focus for this new iteration of the Black Caregiver Network. We were dormant for a while, but that was the next thing, was tackling college from 7th and 8th grade, right? Like starting then, and what is the IEP process? And that was very personal. When Chrissy said this was personal for me, my son had a traumatic brain injury in 2021, and I'm like, I think I know a little bit, and I went through the IEP process like, why do I feel so stupid? Let me just be real. Why do I feel so disconnected when I'm here trying to fight, and this is what I do for a living? And so I was like, if I feel like this, I know my parents are like, what is going on? So now that's the thing that we want to get together on and say, what are the things that we need to have a liaison in this process? How can we come together to ask the stupid questions, because none of them are really stupid, but you might not want to ask them in that meeting. What are the ways that you need people to show up for you so that we can do that? So we are definitely doing that, and then I'll let Junius, you had something.
And it goes to the question you asked earlier. I think we forget one thing. We're our children's first parents. And we teach them. We get them ready for school. And like I said, we know them better than anyone else knows them. So it's our responsibility to build that community. At the end of the day, we're all here because, I'll be frankly honest, if it wasn't for me having a child, I wouldn't be here. It's my child doing that. And because of that, my child right now is in a good situation, so I'm not speaking for him anymore. I'm speaking for his friends whose dad can't be here. The same reason why everyone here is speaking. It's the reason why all you guys are in the room, you travel. You're speaking for a person who can't be heard. You are showing an extension of your community, so it's our responsibility when we leave here to make sure those who are live streaming and everything else, that we are sitting there using the social media aspects to make sure we're involved. That we make sure when we see that kid that's 12 years old on a street light at 8:30 at the corner, knowing he should be at home studying, it's our responsibility not to drive by him and sit there and say, hey, what's going on? Are you hungry? Do you need help with your homework, everything else? So when it comes to building a community, like I said, through homeschool, I'm a good friend of homeschool. You know what happened? I got him home after school. We were there hanging out. That was our parents making sure they got socialization. That's all our responsibility. Like I said, when we leave here, it shouldn't be like we're on our own. It's like we should keep fighting for like the gentleman who's been fighting 30 years in school. He should hand it off, and we should be preparing our kids to do the same exact thing that we're doing now.
Well, I am so grateful that each of you was willing to be here. I'm so grateful to share just a little bit of what I've gotten to see over the years with my friends here. And I just thank you so much for being here, to all of you. All right, so one of the things that was really important when we were putting together the convening this year was we couldn't do any of this without our partners at the foundations and organizations that fund us for this work. And so they have become co-creators in this work, they've become friends, they've become people that we rely on for this work to be successful. And so I wanted you to get a chance to understand where they come from, what part they play, and we have some amazing people here today. So I want to introduce you to Isabella Fruet, Program Officer, Community Strategies at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. Come on up. Ashley Young, Vice President, Policy Engagement at Interact for Health. And Megan Fulker, Program Director of Health Policy and Systems at Interact for Health. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. I am so glad to have you.
I feel fancy.
Now, Ashley.
I was going to say, I feel like you need to disclose my
Yes.
show and say cheer.
Ashley used to work at the Urban League here. We were a part of the Center for Social Justice team, and so that's why she gets, and she's like Miss Urban League extraordinaire too. So that's why a lot of people know Ashley. But it was great for Ashley to go from being a colleague at the Urban League to then being a funder, because it was like, oh, this is great. So that everyone kind of gets to know each of you and your organizations. Tell us about who you are representing today and the current goals, values, and strategy of your investing this cycle. And I know that Megan and Ashley are both from Interact, but if you could tell us kind of the difference in your roles and how that kind of relates to what you do today. So you want to
All right, so good afternoon. I'm Ashley Young, really excited to be here. We, Megan and I work at Interact for Health, and so we're a local foundation. We cover 20 counties, so Southwestern Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and Southeastern Indiana. Last year we went through a new strategic plan, which I'm really, really excited about. What we did was really talk with community and stakeholders to really identify what kind of value add could Interact bring. And so we're a foundation that was founded back in 1997 when the HMO closed. And so we're an endowed foundation. And so we pull from our endowment each year to give funding out to the community, which I think makes us very unique because we don't have donors that we have to answer to. And so that makes our funding a lot more flexible. And so one of the things that we heard a lot from people is that, you know, before we focus in on like tobacco, opioids, very kind of specific narrow areas, and people just felt like if they didn't fit within these narrow boxes, they couldn't get funding. And the issue that we heard a lot was mental health. And so with this new strategic plan, we really have a focus in our foundation is really advancing health justice. And so for that is really just trying to really think about how we address issues with a different process, really thinking about how is community being able to lead and decide, focusing in on policies and systems to really moving us more upstream, and then also thinking about how we talk about issues. And within mental health, we kind of see this overlap too, of really focusing on youth mental health. That's a huge issue, pressing issue within our community, and a specific focus on youth. And so that's kind of how the power building kind of comes out in that area. So really excited about the work that we're doing. We're on a journey. It's not easy. It's a push and pull process, but really excited to be in this space. And Megan, want to add anything else?
One second, before you answer, I just want to make sure that when you're on our live stream, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll include them in our Q&A section. So thank you.
So my role at Interact for Health is Program Director of Health Policy and Systems, working on Ashley's team. And prior to shifting to the new strategic plan, did a lot of local policy work, but very specific in tobacco. And I think what's exciting about our new work is really just addressing the social drivers of health and addressing what communities want to elevate as those policy issues. So have the awesome opportunity to work with people like Jazz at the Urban League and support the policy work that you're hearing from the community, and so that we can really impact change. You know, I think we were showing up in community previously as like, this is an important issue, we see this as an issue, help us address this issue. And not that it wasn't important, but that wasn't the top priority for all communities. And I feel like now we have the opportunity to say, what is your top priority? We want to help you address that. So it is really a shift and a learning journey for us as an organization as we continue on this path.
Thank you. And Isabella.
Hi, everybody. My name is Isabella or Bella Free. I am a program officer with Greater Cincinnati Foundation. We are the local community foundation. We serve Southwest Ohio, and for those of you from out of town, Northern Kentucky, we kind of claim a little bit of that here in Cincinnati too, and one county in Eastern Indiana as well. My specific focus is I do educational grant making, but recently we have undergone some really wonderful growth in our community strategies team that I sit on. I think what I would let everybody know, I don't remember who set it up here, but the field of philanthropy is slow to change, but I think we are seeing some changes. We are seeing a growth in valuing that community voice. If you are part of the community and you are ready for your voice to be shown, bring that voice everywhere, because you never know who's around you listening, who's ready to partner, who's ready to advocate with you, who's ready to walk that walk with you. So I think that's definitely something that is growing. I think philanthropy and also in some other systems as well. That value of occurring with the community and not to the community.
And I have one other thing too. Everybody that's here, that's part of Urban League affiliate too, to Megan's point, she made a great point. I just want to point this out because we don't often make the connection within the Urban League, is that your programming can help inform your policy and advocacy work. That is a unique value proposition that many organizations don't have. And so if you don't have a policy agenda at your affiliate, you should have a policy agenda and talk about how your programming is informing that. I think that's a missing gap, and we oftentimes think about these things as separate, but it's not a lot of organizations that can actually say that they have this continuum that they're working with, and so I think that that is a unique value add that we all should be talking about.
Awesome. Well, I want to open it up because this is a unique opportunity to have conversation with funders for all of the things, right? So many people have pulled me to the side like, how do you do this? How can we bring this? This is step one because you got to pay folks. You got to pay folks, you got to buy pizza, you got to do all of the things. So if you have questions, again on live stream, please put them in the chat. We will get to those. If you are in the building, come on up to the mic and we will have Q&A. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. TJ Green from the National Urban League Young Professionals. So my question is, from a funder perspective, what advice do you have for new foundations or re-emerging foundations? How can they best position themselves from an advocacy perspective so that they can create those inroads to have strong philanthropy ties?
So your question is about for new foundations or emerging foundations, what is their advice on creating relationships with funders?
Right, utilizing advocacy.
Advocacy, okay.
To help create those partnerships.
Okay.
I would say start in the community by listening. I think being able to listen and see what the needs are and then be able to be strategic about building an advocacy agenda or initiatives around whatever the needs might be in the community.
Awesome. Yes.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. I am from, I live in Arizona, but my passion resides in New Orleans.
Okay.
When I look at the health disparities that happen in the lower Ninth Ward, Hurricane Katrina, everyone has exploited all of those things, but don't look at the systemic things that happen with literally just being in the water when hurricanes happen, right?
Yes.
There are a lot in California and around the U.S. There are a lot of places that have cardiac rehab units, and they also have oncology rehab units, but it's always private industry. They're not community-based. So what I'm looking to get more information on, and what I'm trying to do, we've already secured land and all of this, but what we're trying to do is do cardiac rehab and oncology thing as a community-based program, not as a private institution or a clinical hospital, even though we know there is money when it comes to cardiac rehab, because that's a thing that's funded and prescripted. So that's kind of where I'm looking and literally looking around the country, working with other organizations that are willing to do a community-based organization in that particular place. Because you can't find, even the data shows you triple negative breast cancer resides in Black women at under 40, right? But you don't get screening to over 40. So that's where we're currently at and what we're looking at. So as I have the opportunity, and you talk about health, and as somebody who's extremely interested in education, because I said you can't be well if mothers in the community aren't well,
Right.
period.
So your question is?
My question is, from a funding perspective, how can we flip the model? Because we're looking to do something that doesn't exist, or it's something that's very different from the existing private institutions and how rehab, cardiac rehab specifically, and oncology rehab happens solely private institution. But we're not trying to do a community-based clinic. We're trying to do this specific thing, because we know that's where the need is.
So as funders, how do we kind of do something that has never been done before? How do we approach funders for that type of thing?
Jump in for sure, Bella. So I think when you're trying to do something different, it's about finding the right fit for the funders. So I think like Ashley, when she described us at the beginning, we are a foundation that lives off of our endowment. We don't have donors. We can't accept money, so we can be a little riskier. We can do things a little different. We're willing to take on innovative projects that maybe haven't always been tested or are something new. And so I think it's about finding that right type of foundation, because when you are a community foundation, you have donors, or we talk about like our United Way. They have to fundraise every year, and they have to make those people happy, right? So that they donate the next year. I mean, that's just the reality. And private foundations don't have to do that. And so I think it's about getting to know the funders in your community and how they function, and who can be a little more, doesn't have to worry, and can take a little bit more risk, because I think that's where that sweet spot is for new and innovative projects sometimes.
Yeah, and I think I would add as well, I think that first step is exactly where I would start, is finding, even if it's not 100% similar model that's successful in this community or in this region, even if we are investing in something new, an innovative program, something new coming to our region, if there's some amount of proof of concept, I think that helps with removing a little bit of the risk. You know, why will this work, or why could this work? Because it works somewhere else.
Thank you. Next question.
All right. Thank you all so much for this topic, and for having people up here who have money. We always love it. Don't do that. Don't do that. No, but as a smaller organization that really is focused on advocacy, boots on the ground, a lot of the work that we do, the metrics are awareness-based, and when we look at these grant opportunities, the metrics that they want to use for those milestones, we either don't have the tools to track, or the way that our programming is structured when you're doing boots on the ground is hard to figure out how we qualify success. But those dollars, a lot of the dollars are going to research of problems we already know exist, and then the practitioners are being left out who are doing the work. So what is your advice to smaller organizations to better frame impact to qualify for more opportunities?
Okay. How can smaller organizations quantify that impact and communicate that?
Yeah, and my friend over here just told me, I never even told y'all who you were, and my mom's probably disappointed in me. I am with the Honey Brown Hope Foundation. My name is Charmaine Campbell.
Okay, thank you. All right, how can those smaller organizations qualify and quantify their impact in ways that makes them a compelling investment?
I think one of the things is to maybe leveraging a partnership with a local university, and maybe having a student that can help build out some evaluation. Because I think we're in an interesting spot in philanthropy too around measurement, and the metrics, you're right, just aren't quite right yet. And so I think one, kind of building the case, I think we've been undervaluing storytelling too, and so I think storytelling is another unique, and we're not talking about these pity stories, charity, talk about somebody that, oh my gosh, we gave them food, like no, like some authentic storytelling that's not demising people, you know what I'm saying? So I think like exploring that would be helpful, and then I think sitting down and having an honest conversation around how the field is moving versus how that organization might be measuring, because I think, again, going back to relationships, and I know it can be awkward, but I think if you find the right person to have the conversation, oftentimes in philanthropy, like people are, look, I don't like to go on a meeting, people just say, oh yeah, that was great. No, I know everything that comes out of my mouth is not great. So like, being able to have that type of relationship where you feel comfortable just engaging in a dialogue. And so you might even think if it's an off-grant cycle, starting to have those conversations prior to money being released, because it might feel like a more low-pressure situation where you can be honest about like where you are. But that would be my advice. Is that helpful? Anyone else want to?
Sorry, yeah, I have a decent example. I think recently I was working with an arts organization that was actually declined for a grant, and one of our arts grants, and one of their declinations was, one of the reasoning was their performance measures. It was all what we call, outputs versus exactly what you're saying. We do like those, right, we do like those, while also recognizing the need for pairing, that there's gotta be those boots on the ground while also measuring that. And as I was talking with them, I said, well, tell me some success stories. And they said, well, we've sent, 3 kids that were involved with our arts programming just got into UC Berkeley and are going into arts. And I said, well, that's your impact. Why didn't we see that in your application? So sometimes it's also, even if the numbers are real small, that long term, sometimes it's like, don't sell yourself short. Like I was like, you gotta report on those, even if it's 1 kid per semester that you can, if that's measurable, 1 kid, we know that to do that long-term impact, right? They're tracking until they get to college. Like they track this kid for 8 years.
Right.
So I don't know if that's helpful as well.
Yeah,
focus, even if it's a small number.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next question. Yeah.
So good afternoon. I appreciate you all having this conversation. I want to introduce myself first. My name is Dr. Amanda Wilkerson. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Central Florida. The only reason why I'm saying that is because as we're having this conversation, I'm having an out-of-body experience. Because in Florida, when you talk about policy, power, and money, particularly when we start intersectionalizing that with education, we're in a very troubled spot. And also when we consider funding is very troublesome. They just passed the bill, not we. They just passed a bill in our legislative system where, we can't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion measures. We can't even go after funding as a faculty member at a state university for this. Now, I'm saying all this because as I'm listening to you, one of the things that I wanted to really ask you all is how do we reimagine partnerships where we can still do this work, get funding for it, but work across even state lines when opportunities to get funding in my side of the world, and I can tell you I'm very funded right now. I have an NSF grant, but the reality is even my NSF officer looks at my work and says, will you be able to submit another proposal like this from Florida? And so it would be illuminating for me if you could just talk about what it means to reimagine partnerships beyond the borders of our communities and our states, what that looks like for funders and how that can be executed well. Because the other thing I think about is hierarchy. So you just mentioned to the person who left up here to work with university, personnel, and I thought to myself, try to do it is very difficult because researchers have their own agenda that they come with, and she probably has hers. And if somebody walks into my office and say, can you write a grant? I'll tell you I'm not a grant writer, even though I write grants myself. So I'm saying all that to say, like, how do we make it equitable? How do we ensure that there are not hierarchical systems? And what does that look like for funders when you're looking at folks that are working together to make an impact and making sure that you're funding things that will there will be a true measure of great partnership.
Okay, so let me see if I can.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
So, what I heard you say is that you want advice on how do we reimagine seeking funding, doing programs across borders, based off of the things that are happening, you know, state by state, and how can you create true collaboration, and how do funders see that? How does funders see that? Okay. Thoughts?
So on the collaboration piece, I think at least for us, like that is something we highly value. I think that's a positive thing, but we always like to make sure that it's true collaboration, that it's not just one organization benefiting. I think sometimes we'll see things, a big institution is coming to the table and asking for money, and they have a small nonprofit in community that's like gonna do this community engagement piece for them, and they're not paying them equitably. And they're not valuing that piece of the work, and that piece of the work is probably way more important than what the big institution is doing. And so I think that true partnership where people are equal partners and we're valuing that boots on the ground, that getting into community, that work is hard work, and we need to pay for that work. We all get paid to do our jobs, we need to pay for that, right? And so I think how you communicate that partnership, I know something for us, we always do site visits before we award applications, because only so much can come out on paper, and you get so much more information by sitting down and having a conversation with someone. And I think it's very telling who shows up at that site visit, right? So if it's a partnership and a collaboration of organizations, but only the main organization shows up and they're talking about how they have all this community involved, but they can't get them there too, and we'll come to you and meet, you pick the time, and if they can't get community there, that's a red flag of like, well, it's just the institution talking. And so I think those are things that we really look for when we're talking about collaboration, to make sure it's true and authentic, and we're not just having a nonprofit or a community organization on the application for namesake to say that we have community involved.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll add too is I think that coming to events like this and having people from different places and really even leveraging the National Urban League, because to your point, there's work happening throughout the country that are best practices, and so like how do you start to engage more to get different best practices to take to places? Because honestly, like all the bills and different things that are passing, they're passing around those as best practices different places, and so I think that there's an opportunity to be way more strategic around, like to your point, of like identifying places where good work is happening. How do you talk to them? How do you learn from them? And then I think the other piece too that we don't think enough about is that 501c3s can't do all this advocacy work. And so we're the C4s, and how are we thinking about multi-entity organizations and how we're collectively all working together, leveraging the different strengths that each entity can provide within the lobbying space. So I think, again, just kind of identifying, leveraging opportunities like this, and just being kind of strategic around how you learn from them.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question.
Hello. So my question is, as a funder, what are the top 3 things that stand out or that you look for from grant applicants that you're selecting for funding, and what is the biggest red flag that gets people denied?
Okay, green and red flags for applications.
Has anybody seen that viral video of the guy with the red flag, the red flag guy? I think, yeah. Big old red flag, yeah, he's hilarious. Ma'am, madam. I think that community piece is definitely the very first. And that almost, I even tell our reviewers to, it's not even just one question, right? It's the way that they talk about the community throughout the entire application. You can, I can read the first 3 sentences, but really like the whole thing, of course, and tell if they've got a deficit mindset towards that, or towards that community, whatever it is, right? Communities can be geographical, they can be demographic, they can be all different kinds, they can be everything. So I think that's, yeah, that community piece, which fuels right into that like strength-based lens. And on the flip side, that is absolutely something that that I always look for first throughout the entire thing, is how they're talking about the folks that they're serving.
Other red or green flags? Yeah, I think the community collaboration is a huge piece, and that community voice coming out. I think for us, a site visit is a very powerful piece for us of just sitting and talking with partners and understanding and hearing from people in the community. So again, if there is no community voice showing up, that is a red flag. I also think, we've talked a little bit about this, like over-promising and under-asking. Like, you've got to value your people, you've got to value your time, and don't promise the world, because we get it. This is hard work. And so I think just being really realistic is a positive. I think we came from this mindset of like, we need all these deliverables, and we need all these outcomes, and we need all these numbers. And at least for our organization, that is for sure not where we're focused. It really needs to be right-sized for the work.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Next question. I want to try to get everybody's question, because this is like unique.
Hi.
Hi.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. A lot of my question was answered in the last three, but I do have a brief comment. My name is Arlisa Hurd. I am, first of all, a parent, and I am with an organization called 482 Forward out of Detroit. We're an education organizing network. And I'm a parent of a special needs child. And I happen to think that ain't nobody more mad than special ed parents, not just in the state, but across the country. Because there's just been so many injustices, you name it, from top to bottom. But I just want to say this, that our organization, of course, we're C3, we just rolled out our C4, but I dream for the day that we can have foundations that make multi-year commitments to organizations instead of the 1 and 2 year turnarounds. Because just as somebody said up here, policy takes time to change. We fought for legislation in our state that took us roughly about 3.5 to 4 years to change it, and we're still fighting aspects of it now. And that was back in 2016, 2017, and this is 2023. So I just wanted to say that. I don't know if you have thoughts around it, but it would be wonderful if we could have a foundation to a 5 or 10 year, 10 years is a bit, that's beautiful, but a 5, that would be glorious. But a commitment, because these things take time. And I also wanted to just say this. This was the first graduating year of our children that started high school in a pandemic. And I don't know all of the national stats, but in the city of Detroit, we are in trouble. We have a number of our students, my son being one of them, who never recovered. And so there are a series of things that is happening. Kids are being pushed to alternative methods of education and all kinds of things, and parents are stuck in the middle and don't really know what's going on. I really respected what you said about the IEP process, because that is the absolute truth. You can be all of the expert and all of the degrees behind my name and yours, but it's something about that IEP process that you feel like you're in 2nd grade again. And they make sure that you feel like you're in 2nd grade again. So I just wanted to say that, but that's my dream, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any thoughts on like long-term funding for projects? And I mean, personal thoughts if you have talked about this as an organization, but I do think that that's something, you know, that would be beneficial for us to kind of talk about.
Yeah, we use multi-year grants, and we're trying to transition there, and so I think that's also ask for that. Ask for it, and ask for general operating support too. And so general operating support just allows you the flexibility to do what you need to do, as opposed to like project-based, and it more so it's based off of like supporting the organization and the needs that you have.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've trying to shift all of our policy work to multi-year grants, and it is a bit of a game for us as far as like, so if we award a 3-year grant this year, that entire 3 years hits our budget this year, so we have to be strategic internally about how we structure those. So like this year we award 4 of our policy grants for 3 years, and then next year we get another 4 on a cycle, so we have to stagger those, because if they all hit, we wouldn't be able to fund anything else. So we're trying to get more strategic about that. I feel like a lot of our policy grants we've done for 2 years. We would love to shift to 3 years, and so that's something we're working through. And we're starting to track multi-year grants as well as general operating support for ourselves as an organization. to increase those percentages. And then we've also started adding, any project-based grant gets a flat amount for overhead that we automatically add on top. And so I think we're starting to see some of those shifts, but like Ashley said, like ask for it, lay out those whole 3 years. And I think hopefully groups are moving towards that, but that is something that we're personally working on.
Yeah, we also do some multi-year
General operating instead of projects. So like we would like, I think our policy funding to Urban League is, the goal of the grant is to support their policy work. There's no line item budget in that grant agreement. There's no reporting on how the dollars are spent. It's just, we believe in you and we believe in the work you're doing, go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly our philosophy as well. I think it's, like we were kind of saying, it does seem to be moving towards this piece by piece, foundation by foundation, funder by funder, this idea of trust-based philanthropy. You'll see more multi-year grants. We are both doing multi-year grants for our policy, but then also starting to look at some of the other grants that just come through our regular RFP cycles and lift those up out of the RFPs, out of these slightly more limited dollars, to be more strategic and say, whoa, this one has a lot, we can work with this organization, and this one has a lot of potential for longer impact, and we will actually proactively as a team reach out and start that process and say, look, I think this is bigger than just a 1 or 2 year RFP. This could be something really cool. So we've done 2 year, 3 year, and very small number of 4 year. 10 years down the road.
And if you have a foundation that you're working with that isn't doing that, maybe suggest they check out the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project. There's a ton of resources. There's a cohort in Ohio and Cincinnati that was kind of on this journey together that was organized by Philanthropy Ohio, our membership organization. But it's a great resource for foundations. Like if you have a relationship with a program officer or a staff at a foundation, be like, hey, I heard this at a conference, maybe you should check it out. There's tons of great resources in shifting foundations' ways of thinking.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello everyone, my name is Miracle Norrid. I am a mental health first aid instructor from the National Council of Wellbeing. I'm also part of a grassroots 501c3 organization. One of our missions is to provide and promote emotional well-being, emotional and mental well-being to at-opportunity communities. But the problem that we're having is grassroots organizations do not qualify for some reason or having problems qualifying for funding for mental health first aid training for parents and for teens. So what advice would you give to grassroots organizations to help overcome that barrier?
Are you a C3, 501c3 or no?
Yes.
I was just gonna say, a lot of times, like fiscal sponsorship, so I think what we've started to talk about, we have a focus trying to support more grassroots, smaller organizations, is sometimes like our dollars can be bad dollars. Megan can probably talk about this more. And so like that could be an issue, like if, especially for organizations that are just getting started, and if you get a large grant, like they can take you over like for your support test. And so I think having a fiscal sponsor, so having an organization that the money is able to go to help support you, could be an opportunity and something to look into. So it could be potentially like your Urban League or something. It could be your fiscal sponsor and they could actually receive the dollars. So I think even asking, like, try to understand what the issues are. And I think people probably don't do a good job of explaining. I think our team does an excellent job of like the support test and the dollars and making sure like we actually are checking 990 business and stuff like that. And so I think that there's a lot to that right mix of funding that a lot of times people don't realize, and so that can be part of the issue.
Like a community foundation, we would call them good money, and we would call us bad money because we're a private foundation, so we're gonna go against that public support test that you have to hit. So in your first 5 years, you're given grace, but once you hit 5 years, you have to have 33% of your funding has to be public funding in order to maintain your C3 status. So if we have these small organizations with a budget of $25,000, $50,000 or something, and we're giving a multi-year grant of $100,000, we're gonna sink you, right? And we don't wanna do that. We never would want to do that. And so it's a conversation and understanding like who could accept this money as a fiscal sponsor partnership that would work with you because it's not gonna screw up their public support test.
I love it. Y'all are dropping gems today. I hope y'all got all your things together because this is some great information. Yes, please.
So I'm last, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, what's my question? They answered so good. But I will say some of the thoughts that I've had, and maybe you can add to it. I've heard a lot about centering community voice, and I appreciate that, and that's truly important when you think about funding a large organization, because you're wondering, well, who are the people that you're serving? So my first question is, are large organizations really the priority of funders? At what point does it go to the people that you claim you're serving? That's the first question. The second question is, I've heard a lot about the vetting, and I think you all have done a beautiful job of expressing to us what that vetting process looks like, the site visits, etc. But I know for a fact that there are organizations in the city of Detroit that will, soar through a site visit. They will put the bells and whistles out and they will look the greatest, but when you are in that organization and you know what is really happening, what is the accountability? Thereafter, I've secured the money. I've got the multi-year grant, and I'm still doing the people the disservice. But it looks good. So what is the ongoing accountability? Because I've heard of trust, what did you call it?
Trust-based philanthropy.
And I love that, but then you juxtapose that with, you trust me so much that now I have no accountability. Right. I'll see you in 5 years. Just keep the money coming. So I don't know. That's a lot, but I don't know. I don't have a question.
I think you bring up some great points, and just thinking about like those or larger organizations. So I do think that in philanthropy, you are seeing a shift of people talking about they want to support smaller grassroots organizations, describing them as like smaller budgets. Maybe they aren't 501c3s, and so maybe they need sponsorships. And I think the accountability piece, one of the things that we are trying to do more as an organization is be present in community.
Yeah.
So that way, like our team knows that they ain't really doing that work. Right. And you can tell too when you get to
other partners and like, you're gonna tell me that organization isn't doing that work, right?
Yeah, and so I think that, you know, with our funding, like we are trying to think about how do we get closer to people and how, like, what do those organizations look like? But again, this is where it takes, and this is the tough part, but it takes all of y'all holding us accountable too. Because philanthropy is a field of unaccountability. I don't know this word, but like it truly.
I mean, I literally said we're accountable to no donors,
right?
Like
we're ourselves. I think we're good people and we have good intentions. You know what I'm saying? But like at the end of the day, but it takes.
You get the wrong person in charge though, in power.
Yeah. Right. So it takes like asking the right questions, and I think like saying like y'all done funded these people. They're not out here doing work, and I think we have to be able to have those conversations because a lot of people are out of touch, and because they're out of touch, they really don't know what's happening in the community. So for us, we're trying to do a better job of being present, having team members that are in community at meetings so that we have a better pulse.
Yeah, I think also, I was just gonna say on the other side of that, because of the relationships that we have with funders, we come to them. Like Megan and I, when we go out to coffee, I'll be like, oh, y'all gave us this money, and it's been really hard to get parents to come to such and such and such. It was that type of accountability, so she didn't realize like, she's not trying to hide the hard parts because we've given her the money already and she could just, the next time she has to report, make something up. It was like, how are you all also a part of this and understanding the ups and downs? Oh, we need to shift gears. We need to pivot. This person quit. This person got hired. And sharing that with a funder and being, honest about that so that then when they come to us, or if somebody says, well, we haven't had a meeting in a while, it's not coming from community first. It's coming from me first. So she's already know, yeah, I know, somebody quit. And so they didn't have a meeting that week. Because I want to be the one, because I have to be accountable for the money, to come to them and be honest before somebody else says, oh, well, they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Well, and I think it's like changing how that accountability happens. So I think with for instance, on our multi-year grants, there is no annual report anymore, but there's a conversation. We're just taking, instead of you writing the annual report, I'm meeting with you and talking and understanding, and I'm documenting to take some of the work off of the organization, so that you don't sit there and spend hours reporting, because I get more from a conversation. But it's being in community. I shouldn't wait till that year.
Yeah.
I shouldn't wait a whole year before I talk to Jab.
Yeah.
Like, we should connect multiple times. I should be at events. We should know what's happening. And so it's shifting the way we're accountable to each other and shifting what that process looks like and making it more over time instead of, I feel like it used to be this like, every year you submit a report and you report on your measures and the activities that happen. And so it's just changing what that looks like. So I think there's still accountability, but it looks very different and we have to be intentional about it. And it's on us to show up, right? Like, I can't never show up to an event or go into community, like we have to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think two things came to mind that we definitely do at Greater Cincinnati Foundation at least. When there are some of those power imbalance partnerships between a bigger organization and a grassroots, as soon as I see that in an application, I am calling that grassroots organization. Most of the time I know somebody there and saying, what does this partnership look like for you, right? Do you feel like your time is being taken advantage of? Is it equitable? All of those different conversations. Did you know that you were being pulled into this, or was the first time you're every once in a while. And the other thing that we actually did on our community strategies team is that our whole team, for the most part, coming in the last year, has grown, and we are coming directly from our fields of interest. So I am the educational PO. I spent 16 years in education and youth services, only working for nonprofits, actually. Part of that in partnership with schools. That being said, if I see something come across my desk, I am calling my friend who's a teacher at such and such. I am calling my friend who works with, youth of all different kinds of disabilities at this school to say, like, what does this look like on the ground? Or I'm calling my friend who's a parent and saying, if you saw this come across your child's school, how interested would you be? So I think that's part of the value that our community strategies team really brings, is that we have done that in all these different sectors that we fund, is bring people straight from the field who still have those connections.
That's awesome. We have one more question.
Hi, I'm Pascal Swan here with the National Parenting Team today. And my question is, at the beginning, starting over relationships with funders, like there's already an inequity there when you can't even contact a program officer to start telling your story, or no like open invitation to come and just have a one-on-one conversation and say, this is who we are as an organization. We are actually the ones doing the work on the ground. Yeah. It's already starting from a place of inequity because you're only accepting invitations from those that you are in networks already, or tables that we have not been invited to yet, or have come from, I went to college with you, we're in institutes together, we're in the same circle. So it already comes from an ugly place. I'm wondering how you see that as, how do we change that part? Just even the relationship starting piece.
Yeah, no, how do we change the relationships, because it starts off as an inequitable dynamic. We know that we live in a world of white supremacy and capitalism, so yeah, let's just call that out. And so when we think about philanthropy and how we got here, how do we change those things?
I mean, we need people in all spaces, but I'll say, like, that's why I came back to philanthropy, like, part of it.
Yeah, she was my cohort for a while and left.
Then I came back. But it's because, like, you need people within philanthropy that can start to break those things down. Like, to your point, I think it's amazing to hear that, like, your colleagues, which I know many of them have come from different sectors, and so they're bringing those type of relationships, because I do feel that, philanthropy is very insular, and you have to try to figure out how to get in. And so, I mean, like, I feel bad. I'm like, I'm trying, because I feel like it is a sector that really, really needs work. And I hate to feel like I'm trying to do my part to help influence the sector. I hate to like tell people to like help bring us along, but I just wouldn't be discouraged by pushing a little bit, because I think that people don't know what they don't know, and sometimes you have in philanthropy people that have been there forever. Because they're typically good jobs, they stay there forever, they don't understand or get that like they're very just disconnected, and how like, I mean, to your point, like, these systems are built off of white supremacy culture, and so therefore these inequities sometimes continue to be perpetuated.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, I'm trying to do my part. I think, you know, calling and saying like, hey, there's no contact information. I would love to just grab, I would say don't be afraid to say, hey, I would just love to grab coffee just to learn more. While us on kind of the inside work to really try to make sure that this is a more equitable system and that everybody has equitable access to the program team.
And I think so that, yes, push for sure. Like, not kidding. Send the trust-based philanthropy project to if you have relationships, like for real, because I think that's how we make change. And then on our end, you know, it's on us to push our peers too. I was on a panel a couple months ago, and I think I showed up to staff meeting after, and I was like, whoa, those people don't like me. I just blew up that panel. Because it was like us, it was ourselves in an arts organization talking about general operating support, trust-based philanthropy, and then there was these private foundations that were like, accountability, and talking about trying to get in the door, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is painful. And so it's on us to show up in those conversations too and push these new ideas, because that's what we believe we're gonna get change. And I think there is, you know, there's a lot of old money that's sitting there that's been done this way for a long time, and we've gotta start to shift that.
And I think about, I hear a lot of people from Detroit. There are a lot of foundations in Detroit. Y'all should, hey, I'll be there Saturday. But y'all should really say, like, you know what, I was in Cincinnati that had a panel with funders. I would love to have a panel in our community with funders just to engage in a conversation. I found it very insightful. And so, and I'm happy to send emails.
We have some relationships at Kresge, which is in Detroit, and there's some, I don't know what they're like as a whole. There are some, it is. There's some good staff people that we can connect with.
But no, like honestly, like we could talk afterwards and kind of see like what we might be able to do to support. But I think having these type of conversations in your community with funders to really unveil like some of the inner workings, like it needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, I hope that this panel has been helpful for folks. I want you to know that like we have some of the best funders in this work, and I wanted to showcase that. It has been so great to be able to do this work with people who really believe in the work and trust that we are, you know, that our parents are the experts and that we are looking to empower and equip. And if you have any, you know, final remarks, I'd love to give you all the time to kind of do that. And as they are here, if you're able to connect with them and have other questions, that would be great. But I thought, you know, this is one of the first things that I thought, like, we have to have a funder conversation. So thank you so much for being here. Any final remarks?
Keep up the good work. Like, I appreciate each of you. I know that it's hard work. As people mentioned before, especially think about the education space, we're in a critical moment in our country as it relates to education. A critical moment. And so I just really appreciate you all. I hope that you are taking time for yourself. Okay? You need to
take
rest.
care of you also.
Yes, but I really appreciate you, and ask for what you worth, and don't be afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Thank you. And we are ready to begin the next segment. It was really important to me as we speak about building power, as we talk about caregivers who support students in the CPS school district, to also have students represented here. I am absolutely proud to have these two gentlemen. One is my firstborn, who is here to talk about things, and the other is his best friend, who has been, I will say, in my home, in my life. I've had the honor of, you know, serving as a part of his village since he was in 3rd grade as well. So I feel like, you know, they might as well both be my babies. And so I want to present to you today Jordan Dean and Braxton Simmons.
Hello, I'm Braxton James Simmons. I'm in the 12th grade. I'm a drama major at SCPA. And I'm Jordan Elijah. I also did SCPA, and my major was band. I played saxophone.
So we're going to have Jordan and Braxton talk about the ways that they have kind of taken up the torch as students to build power, to advocate for themselves and other students. So they're going to talk a little bit about the way that they've done that, not only in their school but in their community as well. And then we'll have some questions for them, but I kind of want to give them the chance to talk about the things that they've been doing because they're amazing young men. So who would like to start?
I guess I'll start. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was raised to seek knowledge for myself and really speak out and be outspoken. And that led me to finding my best friend, Jordan right here. And that opened up a lot of doors for me in my life. Before I met him, I worked for a nonprofit called Youth Hope, and we sold bags down at Finley Market to raise money for LGBT plus kids to build homes for kids who were kicked out. And that really spoke to me in a way that made me want to really speak for the people who couldn't be spoken for. Then Jordan introduced me to Youth at the Center, and through that I learned a lot of valuable skills that really made me be the person I am today. I learned how to be organized. I learned how to speak for myself and how to speak in a way that people would understand what I was saying, but also be stern, if that makes sense. We then, through Youth at the Center, were able to plan three, plus the ones that we did for the Urban League, youth summits together, and we actually led 2 workshops together. We did one about toxic black masculinity, and we're going to explain I did the second one with a woman named Tanisha Worthy, and we talked about trust in adult and youth relationships, and how to build that, and how to maintain that, and about how malfeasance and other things of that nature have broken those youth relationships. And all this being said has led me to have the courage today to stand up and speak out about Palestine and Congo. And actually today we're planning a student-wide city walkout. A citywide student walkout. Okay.
Thank you, Brett.
Yes, so this one is my mother. And my first introduction, yeah, you can talk about that. My first introduction to community engagement was from her as a little one. Early 2010s, I would just be public idolized, and I would just be with all these characters and all these people who went to a better environment in the world. And so that being always a theme in my household, it led me to pathways like Youth at the Center, where I would work with Sean Jeffers and Tanisha Worthy, and we would be able to, with the help of the Urban League, to do these youth summits and have all these workshops about black masculinity. We wanted to do one with women as well. We need a woman to, of course, run it, but we want to help out. But we also want that, so we don't, but we had that, and to be able to give our opinions, our ideas, and do research and look up the facts of what we cared about and what was supposed to be cared about, how we felt in the community, was really something that was embedded in my identity. And I'm so glad I got to share it with Braxton. And so all the work that I did with that, it did lead to in my school as well, where for a policy pitch night, I had written about the inequities about our dress code and just about kind of how the policy needs to be altered when we talk about equity and exactly what's the purpose of being at a school and what's appropriate and what is the reasons why women need to cover their skin, who's really looking at it in the first place. Things like that we're talking about and stuff like that, little stuff like that we don't really think is a big deal. But when we talk about larger things, larger aspects of sexism and all of that, and patriarchy and all of that kind of works to create a system that has us standing. rather than growing and evolving. So all the work that I did in Youth at the Center and Urban League really helped me to be the person that I am today, and helped me to be able to speak out in front of people in groups like this.
So, one of the things that you all do when it comes to the work that you do in the community with both Urban League and Youth at the Center is you talk about alternative ways of policing as well. Jordan got to speak at Georgetown Law this summer about, you know, the youth perspective on alternative ways of policing. And we know that we're in the Holloman Center for Social Justice, where this was created because of what happened in 2020 with George Floyd. And so I would love for you all to speak a little bit about how that has affected you. What ways you kind of talk about that with other students, and you know, that's a huge thing right now, and what does that mean to you?
Yes. So when I spoke about that, a large part of what I was thinking about when we talk about alternative first responders and how we look at that aspect of like policing and like what exactly that teaching requires is the history. The history of America and the history of policing needs to be more like clear to kids who go to school, as much as it is to George Washington being the first president. It needs to like be understood. What exactly was policing? Why has like this social and racial tense been started? And all those things. And I felt like guests and other people that were there to talk, agreed on that. Like and I even asked a police officer, what is like the history? You guys didn't like teaching about it, and he was like, no, we thought about it like that. Like that should be a thing. I would think like when I learned something about it in school, I get the history of it. I like get what exactly happened, why it happened, what the rounds, where, who was there, why it happened, and all of that. And for policing, we don't really look at it. It's a system, and when you look at systems, like they're just meant to be done the way they've always been done for a matter of time. And when I talked about change, I talked about revolution, breaking rules, and looking how we, seeing how we look at rules, and then how we can alter them and change them for the better of our environment now. And so I feel like that was kind of my like step in where I kind of looked at the alternative process for like police.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to policing and everything like that, I think we first one have to understand that crime is a social construct and not something that's like wrong or right, and like going into that, like I think a lot of students at our schools and how they really view the world is well, like I said, we go to a creative school, so a lot of the ways that people speak out and talk about these issues are creative. Me and Jordan, we both want to use things like that sort of aspect of field, the film and everything like that. And even talking back when we were talking about Black masculinity, like the first film of our nation was about Black people being these egregious creatures. It was racist. So, like he was saying, it's all about looking at the history and looking at the context of like which we see crime, and like less of like us seeing crime as like something that's wrong or right, and more of us realizing it's a way that society views what people do.
So some of the things that you've talked about are the youth summits that you've helped plan, that you facilitated, things of that nature with both Youth at the Center and Urban League. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you started doing that and why you like to do that, and the impact that you feel like it's had with just not for you, but your friends as well in the city.
It's actually really been amazing. I've always enjoyed going to the things. So like from like 7th to 8th grade, you really can't plan them, and you have a smaller part in them. But when we first were introduced to it and allowed to even go, it was really fun. It was exciting to have these workshops where you can kind of like not only learn about the things and injustices going around in the world, but also have fun and meet new people and really experience Cincinnati as a greater whole.
You know, going to SEPA, I've been going there since kindergarten, Jordan, 3rd grade. You were kind of in a bubble. Like, you only know the people you know. But like going to these youth summits, you kind of branch out and get to know more people who are like-minded in the same way as you. But even planning them, from the aspect of planning them, it taught me a lot of skills, you know, when it came to like organizing things, talking to people, you know, human relations. It was a lot. And although it is a lot to plan, you have fun and enjoy it because you're planning it there with people who also want to see this thing kind of pull through. Not only because where else are teenagers and kids supposed to go in the city now that they've kicked us out of all the places, you know, that we like to go, but also because you get to talk about the issues that you're passionate about on a bigger platform and level than you would if you're just talking about it in a group of your friends. I agree. Actually, I feel like the summit is like actually like when the hard work pays off. Like, that's the fun part of it. Because when we're doing it, when we're thinking about all this stuff, we're thinking about the questions, we're thinking about Kahoot, we're thinking about how can we, get engagement, how can we get all the people. And the best thing about it is, find like-minded people and people that care about the same stuff that you do. You meet people that like have so much passion for the same things and so many different talking points and different perspectives. And I feel like that's what you need in this work. I'm sure everybody has different perspectives in this world, in this room about how the world should work and how we can get the world to be better. So I mean, it was just like that, but for young people, and to have a spot that was like so fun, that we could create once we were like in 9th grade to 10th grade to 12th grade. Like we can actually like say like, okay, what do we want to open with? What are things that we've like seen in the community that like we feel we should talk about? And all of those things, like it just felt like we kind of like we really had a hold on how we could get to our masses and our community, our group of young people and our friends. So that was the best thing about it.
Awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit. We are here, a lot of folks here work in education organizations, they're parents, this is the education squad. But from a student's perspective, I would love for you to share with us, what do you feel like are the top education issues right now? When you think about being in school, experiencing it firsthand, what would you say rises to the top as the things that people need to be more aware about, people need to build power around, people need to have action items toward?
Well, one, and I think like first off, it's like when it comes to like what we're being taught and like the history of things and like the perspective, it's a very like not only I guess like whitewash, but a very Americanized view, which I guess are synonymous with each other. So like that's the first thing. Like, and even going to like in our school, you get we get a wider range of perspectives because you're in the arts and people are so free and so liberal about things typically. But even within that, I think like that's like a really big issue. And then when it comes down to it, like on a day-to-day basis, the way that we are like disciplined and the way that we are like governed is really weird. And in the sense of like even what Jordan was saying, like about how he was talking about the dress code, like that was like the biggest issue, like from like I don't even know, like 7th grade even to now, which is kind of crazy that like we were talking about the way that people were viewing our bodies all the way like at what like 10, 11, 12-year-olds. So that was a big thing. And really like the groups that we have made ourselves a part of in our school, like we'll probably speak out, and like a lot of the issues that we try to kind of push forward and try to push forward, like the initiatives we try to push forward in our schools, it gets hard to like, even one, talk about those topics, but two, make sure those things are being known and withheld within our community. So.
Thank you. Jordan?
The best part about this work is you get to do stuff that you feel is important and other people might not. And so how I look at the world, and definitely in school, is like, why is nobody paying attention to this, but we're paying attention to all this? Like, we're paying attention to like 12-year-old girls' bodies, but we can't pay attention to like why like this person with an IEP just got told that maybe they shouldn't have their IEP in the first place and they're taking advantage of it. Stuff like that. So that's like one thing that I really think needs to be paid attention to. IEPs for your children, for them to know that they have that and that they have help, and for them to take advantage of it and use it as much as they can, and for the teachers to be on the same basis. And because I had an accident, and in that accident I had to gain an IEP, and so I've just been learning more about it. And it's just kind of a thing that they like to sweep under the rugs and treat those kids like that, but it needs to be paid attention to more. I think we need to definitely be more vocal about that. And then just like the social, communities in school that are promoted, maybe not unknowingly by the type of rules that are in like state now, but like the dress code was really big, and I know it's something people kind of had their different opinions on, but it just like, what I was arguing was it shouldn't matter if, we're wearing this and we're going to the school, because what honestly like makes me more scared is the attention that people are actually trying to get from the teachers, who would every 5 seconds be like, oh, you have to go to the office because I can't focus because your skin is out. I think stuff like that when it's in school, it really makes it an inappropriate environment, and it really discourages just, any and everybody, women, males, because none of this is good for anybody. No male wants to live in a world where they have to stay into the decision of them thinking that because this woman is showing the skin that they can't focus, or that woman shouldn't be in school. We don't pay attention to the right stuff, and so I feel like that is a real thing that I'm still advocating for, and I hope that we can do better about.
Thank you. I would really love for each of you to talk about what brings you joy.
What brings me joy? I'm a big like television, film. Like I really like watching TV and shows, and like I didn't really like, even when I was a kid, like before like the 9th grade, I was a dance major. Like I was a dancer, and I like dancing, and I like doing that, but like it wasn't like more like ballet focused. So like going into like acting, like I really found a newfound passion that I didn't know I had. And I like being on stage and like performing to people and showing them my art and showing them like kind of my thought process without really even like talking to them. So that was really cool. And I'm a part of like this group called Drum Ensemble. It's like for the best actors in school. And that was really cool to me because I've only been acting for 3 years. And now I really like kind of get my say or forefront on the stage. I really enjoy film and television. I'm a big like comic nerd, superheroes, and that kind of stuff I grew up on. So yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Things that bring me joy, I love food. I love breakfast food, and so, but other things, you mentioned TV shows and film. That's something I really enjoy. I love dissecting films, and I also just like seeing what it means to other people, because I feel like art should be something like that. Interpret art, and then you show it to the other person and say, oh, I probably did this, I probably did this, but we don't know what it was like. So, but I like that type of stuff, and I really like being with friends and family. I enjoy spending my time with them. We mentioned comics over compliments too. We both like just nerds. And so music is also something I just love. I have this international players anthem. My shirt. I just love to listen to music. I love artists that I listen to. I think Spotify rap just came out. Apple Music rap just came out, so I just artists that I was listening to. But music has always been something in my family, something I still encourage with saxophone. So those are the things.
Okay. And I would also, you both are seniors this year. It's a time of transition. So maybe talk a little bit about what is next for you all and what you hope is next. And, how does this legacy that you all have taken up of building power, of advocacy, of being in your community, of being one with your community, how does that continue in this transition?
So for a long time, I've had my kind of like life, my plan mapped out how I wanted to go,
that always changes. I can understand that, but I don't know. I plan to go to college, do my 4 years. I want to major in drama, minor in teaching, and then go to a law school and be a lawyer throughout my 20s and do a little bit of acting there too. And then, once I turn 30, I want to go into politics. And then when I turn 38, I'll be able to run for president. I want to start my own school, like an art school, like SCP, but better. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So my plan is something I've continuously been talking about, is to do all of what I'm talking about through film and really show those feelings of exclusion that we feel when we're a minority in this place that wasn't built for us, or only built for us to be in service to it. And so I really feel like I want to do that and share those feelings on film. And something that we always talked about, and it's kind of like a blueprint for how we can do stuff that we do is Atlanta. And when we watched that, it was something that really gripped us, because it was something this is how it feels to be black, portraying how it feels to have skin color is something that was just so crazy to me. And so I want to continue that in my work, and I hope to keep doing that, and I hope to keep speaking out, and I hope to keep writing and keep encouraging people to speak out, and I hope to keep being friends with him and doing the work we do in art.
Okay, do we have questions from the audience?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. You guys were phenomenal. Continue the good work, and additionally, bring in more young people to be encouraged and empowered to do the work that you're doing. Our biggest gap is that we are not keeping up the roads and helping young folks to be in that position where they will be able to transition on up. You're doing great work now, and as you continue to do more work, you will get more seasoned. You'll be seasoned, and so I just commend you and greatly appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Charnel Colbert. I'm the Director of Education at Google Early, and I was so inspired by you all. Thank you so much. I come from a youth power background, which is very different from youth empowerment, and I'm wondering if y'all could talk about that a little bit. So I feel like, I guess my question is, for well-meaning adults who want to support you in your work that is youth power led, not necessarily youth empowerment, what are some of the things that you would expect from adults to support you in your work and your leading, not us telling you how to do it?
Yeah, how can adults support you all in leading versus trying to empower you, right? Yes.
Thank you. You said Charnel?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
A very big thing that actually kind of was showing through us working with you at the center. A lot of that work was basically it was really all us. They kind of just gave us the blueprint. So I think a really important thing is one, they created a space where we felt comfortable enough to not only talk, but also felt comfortable enough sharing things with them. So at the beginning of every meeting, we always start off with one, a check-in, and then two, we go into things. And so they give us a platform, but not necessarily, they don't necessarily take the mic if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? The foundation that they laid allowed us to build the house, if that makes sense. When we're in those meetings and when we're planning planning, for example, the youth summits, it's like, okay, this is what we have to do, and this is like what you need to do to plan this summit. Okay, but what do you want this to look like? So, yeah, we might have to find a venue, but what is that? What venue do you want that to be? Or we know we're gonna need a DJ. That's what you need for the summit, but who is that gonna be? So it's kind of like that foundations. And so now, if I was part of the student council for like the past 3 years. So when we were planning like things like prom and homecoming, I already knew what I had to do. We had to find a venue, the DJ. Those were the things that kind of were like good to talk to me. But not only that, but they encouraged us and empowered us to basic, speak on what we wanted to talk about. Nothing was kind of off the table or off the limits when it came to like what we wanted to speak on or do. So it was very open, and I feel like a lot of the times adults already have an idea of what they want something to look like for the youth, but they don't necessarily let the youth actually say what they want that to look like. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes?
Hi, gentlemen. I am truly impressed. I'm Rhonda Askew, and I am from Detroit, and I work on Every School Day Count, which we're trying to decrease chronic absence. So I would just like your input on how other students are affected when students miss school, and also how would you feel about the state of Michigan now have this big ideal that when they become truant absence, they send them to courts now. And the parents have to go to court. So I would just like y'all's strong idea of how to address chronic absence and how to affect you two that come to school every day and apply yourself and this child or this student is continuously absent. How do that affect your academics every day?
Thank you. So what are the impacts of chronic absenteeism for students on you all, and what are your thoughts on ways that that can be addressed?
So for in our school, like ours, chronic absence isn't that big of a problem because it's only like the minority group. There's like 3 or 4 kids from every grade not be here as much as like the other kids. I wouldn't say it affects me as much. In my experience through high school and at CBS, it doesn't affect me at all. I don't think we should assume like people who go for that. Because I feel like a large part of that stuff and just other stuff that I've seen go down that kids have done and that teachers, or the CBS has gotten to court for, they're like the judge is like, why are you here? What's the reason? Like, why are we even doing this? So many other stuff to be covered. So and that's another thing where I was thinking, like, why are we paying attention to this? I think we can definitely better, the attendance, but I think it first starts with understanding why that student is late, why that student can't make it every day. I know I've heard a lot of stuff that goes down. You would believe it, and everybody says there's always an excuse for it. There is. There's always something that's going on, and I think there's always something we can do to try to help the students, because I just don't believe that people are going to tell me that all these kids just don't want to come to school. That's just like what it is today. So I feel like I don't answer that.
Thanks so much. I need you to be sure.
Thank you.
Actually, I was thinking that should come to Chicago first. First, I want to say respect. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and leading. My name is Naida, and I'm with Kids for Chicago, in Chicago, obviously. Currently, I lead a parent leadership fellowship for education equity. And one of the things we talk about is parenting for liberation, and thinking about creating these spaces of liberation for our youth. What do we need to do as parents at home to help prepare youth for potentially having a liberated society, right? Because it's something that we talk a lot about, and I don't think that we hear enough about young people to look at what's left for them and how they can be prepared to inherit something like that, something that doesn't exist today.
So what does liberation look like for them?
Yeah,
and how can they be supported in that?
Yes, like what are we missing
Okay.
when we're having that conversation?
I guess liberation looks like to me, really is like freedom for all people. What Martin Luther King always talked about, injustice somewhere. I mean, is a threat to justice everywhere. So, but I feel like in the ways that like parents and like you can help your kids at home, I guess, like better themselves for a more liberated society is, I guess, well, one, I think it's very important to have those conversations and have those open forums. Something that I've always had in my household since I was like young, and like my mom got a lot of flack for, like while raising me, was like the fact that we had very open and candid conversations. Like me and my mom, while we may argue sometimes or even have discussions, like it's never like nothing's ever off the table or nothing's ever off the like limits of like having a discussion about. So when I had questions, she just answered them to her best ability and honestly, and then we had discussions about that. But I think a lot of people and a lot of like parents and adults today like for kids to be seen, not heard. So in that case, it's like, oh, you know, why do I have to do this? Like, why do I have to go to bed at this time? Oh, because you just have to, you know. And it's a lot of I think it's about like the discipline and the way that you allow your child to speak. I've always, like I said, I've always been able to like have that sort of like outspokenness and like communication, and as long as it was in a respectful manner. And so I feel like if you teach your child to be respectful, one, but also two, have that open line of communication, it allows you to be more outspoken as you grow.
Thank you. And I know it's a long line, and I just want to say there is a film I'd like to share with you all, if you allow me to, about, it's done by young Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico, and they did a film that talks about colonialism and gentrification on the island. I would love to share that with you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question.
So, as I stood in line, many of my questions were answered. So I want to say, first of all, Mom, thank you for the discussion. And to both of you young men, we know that black men, young black men like you are not a monolith. We talked about centering the voice for the ones, this is who we are. Okay, at every level that you find us, this is the way people black we are. And I'm a mom of some. So I just wanted to say that, well, what I will say that I haven't heard is, to create more, maybe not at the early meeting, as we all go back to our, I'm sorry, I am Tanya Winters from Atlanta, representing the National Parents Union. I'm gonna be rolling up that. How do we get in contact with you? What types of forums would you like to see where your voice is at the center, having conversations with adults like this? As we go back to other corners of our nation, what are some of the ways we can engage young black men, such as yourselves, pulling you to the table to lead the conversations like we did today?
What are some of the ways that they can engage, that everyone can engage young black men and bring you to the table for whatever it is? Yeah, absolutely.
I think it should be simple. You should just get some white boys. They can speak about
How do they get to them? How do they get to them?
I don't know, that's a hard question. I definitely feel like the best answer is free haircuts, yeah. You have barbershop talks, stuff like that, stuff that's, making them feel comfortable. Yeah, and having conversations, stuff that makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel heard, makes them feel valued. That's an issue for black women and black men, and definitely blocked by America, but also by ourselves and each other. But so if we can create spaces, and I'm talking about creating safe spaces for young people, but also creating safe spaces for young black boys, and then having conversations. I mean, that's really, I think, where it would start.
Thank you. Next question.
Hey, it's Lydia.
Hey.
But I'm really happy that you all are here, so thank you both. I do have two questions. My first question is, given the current society that you are in and that you're having to try to really survive and thrive in, where does your hope for your future come from?
Where does the hope for your future come from?
Really because, I don't know, I love my mom so much, and she's done so much for me, and so I want to return that favor. And I know people say a lot, but I think that's really big. I'm an only child to a single mom, and the things that she's done for me has been a lot, and that's why I kind of want to return that favor. And then two, my friends and family, we're like I have hope for the future, but that I want to build a better future. I'm still in the belief that things can change. I'm still, working towards change. But I do believe, I can only hope for so much. I can only hope to encourage the next generation and the generation after that. Somehow we will get to an even better place of where we were. And I think that's how a lot of our leaders thought about when they talk about taking the torch and talking about all of those revolutionary acts. Encouraging the next generation to do as much as we can now so that we can have better. My system now, because of this better than I have right now.
Well, that literally is my next question. I wrote down, what encouragement can you offer younger students?
Encouragement? I don't know, it was just, keep going even when it's hard. That's very cliche. So, I don't know, when it comes to encouragement, I'd always like to say, I just got keep your head down and be focused and really think about the things that you're passionate about, that you want to do, and that eventually you'll reach your dream. So.
That was my exact same thing. That's what I was thinking about. Just think about things you like. Just go back to the things that you just love to do, and I feel like that should give you enough encouragement to, stay alive and keep fighting.
Okay. One more question.
Hi, good afternoon. Just listening to both of you is really making me so emotional. I'm a parent leader from Queens, New York, and I'm currently on the SLT board. We're in the process of doing uniform policy. After listening to Jordan, I want to ask you, do you really think uniform policy is necessary, or should we just let the kids wear whatever they want?
So you said, do you really think
we should have uniform policy?
Oh, uniform policy is necessary. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I do think it's necessary. I think it's a big change. I think that's kind of like the basis of it. I think that's why it's kind of like whoa. But I think it's a big change. But I think that's the big change I feel like we need to live with if we want to, shred these ideas of patriarchy and all of what controls our society and who makes the calls of what's appropriate to the majority. And so, yes, I do think.
So you think to do away with uniform policy? Like, okay.
Yes.
Dress code.
Yes.
Yeah. He's saying do away with it.
Do away.
Yeah.
So can we talk to you offline? Can I talk to you when you get?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, I really appreciate you being here today and just sharing parts of who you are. I probably sometimes take for granted the beautiful spirits that you have because I get to see it every day. But I'm so grateful that everyone here has gotten a chance to see a little bit of that and appreciate the things that I get to see and experience every day. I love y'all, and thank you for being here. Thank you.